Hey, it's Ike. I'm coming to you with another quick tutorial for Blender. This time we're creating trees, like trees that actually exist, because we're trying to reproduce a location that actually exists. In this case, Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's say I couldn't find the trees I was looking for on TurboSquid or Envato. I'm actually going to need to build my own. Sure, if you had a tree gen, maybe that would work. I don't. I want precise control. I want to build this exact tree even. Now, we're not going to get super detailed with these trees because, after all, they are just, distance trees, not close-up trees. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in a photo reference. So I just screen grabbed a tree from Google Maps, got it on my scene there, and then we're going to go ahead and drop in a plane and tab into that. And we're just going to make this plane a little bigger so that it covers the tree that we're copying, essentially. Then what I'm going to do is grab the knife tool and just draw a loose line down the center of the trunk. And I find that it's better if you just go ahead and do it edge to edge. I'm going to switch over to edge select, Command B to bevel that out a little bit. It's going to bevel it, consistently. It's not going to taper it. Hit 1 for point mode, G to grab those, and you can see I'm in the orthographic mode here, so I know that these points are only moving in 2 dimensions. So you can see I selected the polys that don't make up the trunk. Just delete those faces, and now we've got a 2D representation of our trunk. But for the branches, I'm going to get out of this model, and we're going to create a new plane for that. So Shift A, add a new plane. We're going to have to rotate it on the x-axis, hold down Control, snap it to 90. I'm going to scale that guy down. I'm going to show you a different method here. So, and this is, probably the way most of you would probably do this. Like, you could have done the same technique for the trunk, but I find the method I showed easier. Okay. So depending on which view mode you want to get into, you might want to go wireframe. Could help you see this a little better. It's up to you. And so you can see we just got the start of it, but if we go into edge mode and grab this first one, just hit E right on wherever we want. And it's like the same type of scenario. You're going to have to adjust those points a little bit, get them where you want them, and then just rinse and repeat. You might just make 2 or 3 branches and then do a lot of repeating, which is kind of what I would recommend. You can even, that's the beauty of this, is grab this guy, shift duplicate him, Shift D, and here we are making a new branch. I'm going to scale it down so that it's smaller size, so I'm not moving things too far. Tab on into edit mode. We're again just grabbing points, moving them around. You might say, well, couldn't we just extrude a cube kind of more in 3D? And yeah, of course, you can do whatever the heck you want. But I find it best to work in 2D, and you'll see why a little later. So go ahead and make again as many hero branches, if you will, as you like. And And then we can just duplicate a bunch of them. Go from there. I'm going to go ahead and pause this, fast forward, and get you to a better place so you don't have to watch me do it. Once you've got your hero branches created and we've got our tree trunk, now, before we go cloning, instancing, whatever, all these branches, we got an important step we got to make, okay? That would be UV editing, because that is the key. You get a good UV right in the beginning and it'll make your life a whole lot easier. Alright. So here we are in the UV editor. Let's just go ahead and hide this image plane for now for visibility's sake. So go with the tree trunk, hit tab, select all those. You can see it's not bad. I mean, what we have over here on the left is probably good enough in most cases. Poly selected, hit UV, and then we want to unwrap, and we want to do cube projection. And that gets us a nice flat version. You can see it's upside down, but otherwise it's great. So I'm just going to rotate it and move it to place. And it doesn't really matter where we have it because we could mess with that later. I mean, we can use that as a guide for our painting. Okay, so trunk done. Now let's go on to branch number 1. Okay, you can see this is a hot mess. Okay, and this is the process of just taking a plane and extruding it. So it's nowhere close to what we're looking for, right? But doesn't matter, process is the same. Just gonna go to unwrap, cube projection. There we go, scale that guy down. Rotate them how you think is best. I like to have kind of the thinner parts of all these things to the top, so when I'm painting I just kind of know that that's what I did, and it'll help. And these were all duplicates of each other, so they're gonna all start out similar like this. Unwrap, cube projection, rotate, scale it down, and exact scale is not critical, and that can be adjusted later, or if it is critical for your project because you're going to be seeing these up close, then there are ways to do that. You can eyeball it or use some packing tools to get you where you want to be. Last one. Move them around and get them really tight if I wanted with each other. So now that we've got the UVs done, go back into layout mode. Unhide our image plane, I suppose, so that we can go into orthographic mode again and duplicate some of these branches. I'm going to put some on the other side here, but for right now they're going to be oriented the wrong way. Select them, unselect the image plane, go into the top mode, R for rotate, 180 degrees, and now we can move those into place. And if you want to scale them, just make sure to position your cursor where you want it, because it's going to scale from that point. Kind of rotate it into place. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a bunch more of these branches just through the Alt-D to instance them, and be right back. Alright, so we've gone ahead and we've cloned those branches. We've got a ton of them now, both sides of the tree. Now if we grab that image plane and move it out of the way, we can see what kind of mess we've made for ourselves. Looks like we've got one branch just kind of floating there. I'll just plug it in wherever. So looks fairly balanced. Then what you want to do is we're going to rotate these around the tree trunk. But before we do that, I'm going to give this tree trunk a little dimension. Go into Add Modifier and just do Solidify, and then give that a little bit of thickness. So now we've got our trunk. I'm going to go into Top View and position my cursor pretty much in the middle of the trunk. And it doesn't matter that it's high up on the tree versus lower on the tree. It's in the middle. That's the important part. Okay, and so now it's just kind of subjective. How do we rotate these branches in a way that it looks somewhat natural? Make that tree a little thinner for now. Tree trunk. Okay, so we'll grab one of these RZ to rotate on the Z axis. And you can see it's rotating around that cursor on the Z axis. So we can be in this, perspective viewport, and we're fine. Alright, so got our tree with some branches. So now we need to get them needles on there. If we look at what's going on here, it's essentially batches of needles. We've got groups, and they're kind of in the round, like a hand is how I'm thinking of them. And trees, things in nature, a lot of them are created with fractals, right? It's just kind of the same repeating pattern. So that is what we're gonna use to our advantage in relatively quickly fleshing out this tree. Alright, so first things first, just drop in a cylinder, because that's kind of the closest to the shape of my open hand. So Shift A, cylinder. I'm going to change, instead of 32, that's way too many revolutions, we're going to do 8. And I'm going to scale that guy way down. Okay. Grab it over here, tab on into there. Get rid of faces on the top and the bottom of the cylinder. In point mode, I'm going to scale. Oh, we've got it centered to the cursor. We want it to be individual origins or median point. Let's do that. Scale that in until we get that kind of open cone shape. Duplicate them inside of edit mode, Shift D, so it's in here. Scale it back to UV edit mode, because that's vitally important before we go duplicating a bunch of these. To add seams to both of these cylinders, right click, mark seam, select them both, go to UV. We're going to unwrap. We're just going to do unwrap. Yeah, that'll give us maybe a smarter unwrap. Yep. Okay, this is the bottom, I believe. Get into point mode here. Yes, bottom and bottom. Okay. again, just like with the branches, we're gonna put the bottom, it's at the bottom. Scale that down. And then if you'll remember, the branches, the trunk, were all over here on the left-hand side of our UV dimensions. They're UV'd. So now, no matter how many times we duplicate that guy, clone it, whatever, it's gonna stay where we want it to stay. And then if we Alt-D it, duplicate it, and then rotate it, and just put it there. And then we're gonna do that to another one. Rotate it, and kind of the mirror image of itself. Close enough. Again, this is nature, so we don't want things to be perfect. Happy accidents, as Mr. Ross would say. So let's duplicate these, but I'm going to go into top mode, place my cursor right in the middle, rotate, and then look at that. Alright, you want to select all of these and make sure that the one that isn't cloned is the mesh, and that's highlighted in the lighter orange. And then we can hit Command J, join them all together, and go inside if we like, and grab one of these guys. And actually, let me get rid of these seams. We're done with the seams. They're freaking me out. Clear seams. There we go. Okay, so grab these guys. Oops. We're going to just separate them by selection. Now they're in their own deal. So now we've got two types of things to clone. You can see pretty quickly this is starting to look like a tree. You can see I'm definitely rotating around the model. Continue to move my little cursor around because it affects the way I'm able to rotate. Alright. Went ahead and selected the trunk and the branches, and one of the groups of needles went into edit mode, and now we're able to see what's going on over here on the left with the UV. And make sure you have the little UV sync selection button checked in the upper corner. Okay, and so then what I'll do is I'll just create a screenshot of this guy. And don't forget to save. I almost forgot to save. We're going to open up Photoshop. Create a new document. It'll be 72 dpi. Now do 1024 or 2048 squared, whatever you decide. If you're really trying to save some space, you might do 512 if they're farther away. Then we hit create and paste in your screenshot, if you will. I've got snap on, turn that off. Scale it so that it's essentially the same size, that little light colored, light gray border. And then this is a good representation of our UV, 1024 by 1024. Create a new layer, lock that layer with the UVs on it, and you know, certainly get yourself a stylus or something like that, use that, or you can just use a good old-fashioned mouse to color this. And a million different ways you could do this. I'm just gonna use the shape tool, draw some rectangles, find a wood-esque color, draw these around. Might take down the opacity a little bit just so you can see where you're at. Okay, let's do another one. Another one. Just keep on drawing rectangles. Okay, and combine those together, give it some lower opacity. And for the needles, you're going to want to probably use a stylus or carefully place them because we need to have a good, clean, crisp border as an outline to use as an alpha for these needles. We'll do it that way. Grab a good green needle color. Whoops, looks like I had that layer selected. Mess you up, friend. Draw out a thin little needle. And I'm going to go ahead and go to A mode and shape this needle a little bit. Scale her down. Try not to use the same keyboard shortcuts as you were using on Blender. This is not Blender. There's actually a pivot point on this free transform as well, but I'm not seeing it, so won't worry about it. But you want fairly tight needles, and just keep on repeating those guys. And depending on what you do, if you're hand drawing them, you can give them a little bit more organic fill if you like. Create another layer on top of the trunk and the branches, and you might just introduce some different values of brown. Something that breaks these guys up a little bit. Line all those guys together, how about that? Didn't combine them together because clipping mask was engaged, which doesn't allow that. Pick from the same color to fix something, or be a starting point for another color. It's huge. Probably do a whole series on picking colors and how to keep them in the same family and what have you. For the opacity of this guide layer, just to help me see what's going on a little bit better. So, duplicating these here needles around. So, if we hide all those, construction layers. We just have the artwork. Go ahead and save that out. Let's do tree tutorial. Tree albedo. Okay, and then simply combine everything together. Then we want to add a layer style of a color overlay. We'll make that color overlay black. That's sound. Okay, and then we save that one out as tree alpha. Now we're back in Blender and go ahead and bring in that image, shall we? Tree 2, albedo 1. Beautiful. Looks like everything's lining up. Start adding materials, so this can be the same material. We'll just call this tree. We'll use it for all of them. How does that sound? Okay, so add an image texture, connect that to the color, open Sesame. That's going to be the tree. Okay, and then we're just going to Shift-D duplicate that, take color into the color into alpha, and we want to replace that with the alpha map. Now we've got that, then we select these other elements of the tree and go and select that material. So the alpha is not doing what we want it to do. Why is that? Well, glad you asked. Go down to settings. The blend mode needs to be alpha clip. Alright, and it looks like the image is inverted. It's not what we wanted. That's okay. Whoops. Change that to alpha clip as well. But that's easy enough to fix. We just add an invert color guy in there. What the heck? Look at that. Got us a super ugly tree with needles, branches. Oh, we got one more guy that we need to apply that texture to. Tree, and it is set. The whole thing is covered with them. We are currently in EV mode, and that's what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a project that I was just working on with trees like this and kind of show you that can actually look halfway decent in the end. So now you can see some trees that are actually in this scene that are looking halfway decent. These are palm trees. That was done with the same techniques as the tree I just showed you. So here's a tree up close. Got some depth of field going on and some denoiser, but literally same technique, and it's looking pretty good. I think let's turn off the depth of field a little more. Normally we'll turn off the denoiser. Oh look, those were hand painted needles. They were a lot tighter, so probably better than the quick example I shared. So check out this quick render of this scene done, where all of the trees were done using that same technique I just shared. You know, just spending a little bit more time. Like I said, you can use the sculpting tool not to add more density to the mesh, but instead just to push and pull and round out things a little bit better if you like. But in this case, and maybe in your project, the trees are quite a ways away, so it doesn't really matter, right? So I hope you found this valuable, and if so, please consider giving the video a like, and more importantly, subscribing to the channel. Both of those things are totally free, and it helps me out a lot. Appreciate you.